Yo, what is going on YouTube? In today's video, I want to go over basically my wish list for Warzone, kind of talking a little bit about how I feel about Season 4, things that I hope that they change, things that I like that they did, and things that I hope that they implement in the future. Basically just a wish list of changes that I want to see inside of the game that I think could make it better. I'd like to challenge you guys in the comment section to go ahead and leave 3 points, 1, 2, and 3 of what you guys would like to see changed in Warzone, kind of your own wish list. Everybody, please be respectful, be kind. You know, this is obviously my opinion, and you are completely entitled to have yours as well. Just be kind to each other in the comments. I want this to be more of a discussion rather than people just yelling back and forth at each other, because I think it's pretty valuable to hear back from the community what you guys kind of want to see happening in the game. Anyway, before we get into it, if you guys have not already dropped a like, I'd very much appreciate that. If we can somehow get 1,000 likes in the first 24 hours, that'd be absolutely phenomenal. Subscribe if you guys are brand new around here. We're on our road to 300,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it. Without further ado, guys, let's get into the wish list. Before we get into the wish list, I want to go over Season 4 and just kind of my thoughts and feelings. So far, I really do like Season 4. I think it's fantastic. I'm enjoying the fact that the AMAX is not necessarily the meta AR anymore, and they're kind of shaking it all up. However, I think they're kind of starting to phase out the MW guns and really just letting the Cold War weapon shine, which is, you know, okay, and it's cool because it definitely brings a lot of change to the game. But it just goes to show that they probably should not have integrated Cold War into Modern Warfare, not only because they're not on the same engine, but because it's just, you know, you don't need that much variety in a game where you get to choose what your weapons are. Now, if this was an open world BR where it's, you know, completely RNG and no loadouts, I think the more weapons, the more diversity, the more fun it would be. But in reality, when you're given all these options, there's really not that many options, right? Like there's like 3 ARs that you use, 3 SMGs, 2 snipers maybe, and that's pretty much it. Outside of that, you know, you're outside of the meta and you're at a disadvantage, unfortunately, because everybody uses the same weapons for the most part. However, with this season, I do think that they did a good job balancing it. Like I said, I'm glad the AMAX got nerfed. I've given this season like a 5 out of 10. And that's not me saying that it's a bad season. I think it's a good season. I just don't think it's quite enough. That's just my thought and feeling on it. We didn't really get anything all that new. The sun is still the way the sun is. That's going to be on my wish list. A little spoiler alert. I wish they would have done something with the sun. But they didn't really add too much new stuff. It was really just a battle pass. I was hoping to get, you know, some more, not even drastic changes, just changes in general. That didn't happen, unfortunately. But anyway, guys, that's just what I'm giving the season. Let me know in the comment section down below, out of 10, what you guys are giving it. Let's get into the wish list. Very first thing on my wish list is going to actually be diversity inside of the playlist options. They had Stimulus, which arguably was probably the best mode, or most people's favorite mode that they've come out with, like LTM wise, and they just have not brought it back in any way, shape, or form in an incredibly long time, and I'm not quite sure why that is. I think it's probably the best version of solos in particular. I think the solo experience, that's something I'm going to talk about again on the wish list, but the solo experience is kind of rough inside of Warzone, and I'm not really sure what they can do to change it too much, because the game just lends itself to be more of a team-based game where you guys are going to have more fun playing in trios and in quads. Honestly, quads is pretty hectic as well. I think trios, I see why they launched this game with just trios, because I really do think trios is kind of the peak performance or the end-all be-all best mode in this game by a long shot. However, I would love to see Stimulus, you know, rotated in. It doesn't even have to be a permanent playlist. I don't think in the past 2 seasons we've gotten Stimulus at all, which is kind of crazy because they introduced it. It went over really, really big with the community. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. Content creators were loving it. Obviously, you know, none of the PRs count and all this, that, and another. But aside from that, it just made the casual gaming experience, getting on and playing, a lot more fun, especially with the TTK being as low as it is and being unforgiving. You know, the Stimulus mode made it a lot more forgiving, because if you have a self-res, people are going to thirst you. Being able to just have 4,500 and automatically redeploy, I don't know, it just kept the lobbies alive a lot longer. It let people get more kills, and I think overall just people had more fun. I don't think there's any harm in that, but, you know, obviously Raven Software has their own plans, which leads me into my next point, something, the second thing on my wish list, and that's going to be raising the TTK, raising the time to kill. Now, when I say raising, I want to make sure this is abundantly clear. When I say raising the time to kill, if the time to kill is 500 milliseconds, I would like to see it raised to around, you know, 800 to 1,000 milliseconds. So basically, for those of you who don't know what a millisecond is, it's 1/1000th, I don't even know if I said that right, of a second. 600 milliseconds is around what the TTK is with most weapons inside of Warzone. 600 to that 800 mark is about how fast you're going to be dying inside of Warzone, which 600 milliseconds is basically half of a 1 Mississippi. You know, so if you say 1 Mississippi, half of that amount of time is how much time you have to react, fire back, or make it to cover. I know a lot of people say, oh, we don't want the TTK any higher, or, you know, it's going to increase the skill gap too much because better players are just going to dominate. That's not really the case, because better players, yeah, they're going to have more health, but you're also going to have more health. It's just overall, I think, going to make the game a lot more enjoyable. That is something that I realized when I switched over from Blackout to Warzone, is that the TTK was extremely fast. And when we're talking about the TTK, the other main problem with the TTK is going to be the next thing on my wish list. But basically, the TTK, if they would make it longer, I think it would be better. I don't think it needs to be as long as Apex. I definitely agree with that. But I think as it currently stands, it is a little bit too fast. And I think the World Series of Warzone and the custom games with all of the top players kind of showcase that a little bit more, because when you're playing in a lobby against everybody who is not missing, people are dying incredibly fast. And I think part of the thing that plays into that, which is going to be the third thing on my wish list, is going to be a site meta change. Now, this is one that a lot of people really don't like and they get really upset about. And it's because I don't know why. They must like using these weapons, or they think they're going to be at a disadvantage if they don't have to. But I think a lot of people, that's their first reaction to a lot of recommendations or wish list items, is they don't want the game to change because it's going to be unknown. They're not quite sure how it's going to play out, how it's going to work. They'd rather just continue playing the game how it is rather than risking changing it and not being as good as they were, so on and so forth. But the site meta change, I really do think that on, you know, the full auto ARs, on full auto LMGs, things that aren't single shot weapons, I don't think you should be able to use a 3 times or above on those weapons. I think that's part of the reason the TTK is so rough, is because the guns already don't have a lot of recoil on them because of buffs and nerfs and things of that nature. And then when you throw a 3 times optic on it and you have a full auto weapon and you can't essentially miss, you know, it's pretty difficult to miss. And then the argument comes in, well, lower skilled players, they still miss plenty. But it's just one of those things, man. If everybody had to use iron sights and there was, you know, and we all had more health, you'd be surprised at how much more enjoyable the game would be for everybody involved. You know, you'd have time to react. And that's part of the thing with the high zoom optics and the VLKs and the 3 times. I don't think that the high zoom optics, you know, 2 times should be unusable. I think it should definitely be usable, but just not as strong as it is now. And I think it should definitely take some sort of skill, because AR should be essentially rendered useless, you know, after 200 meters. If people couldn't just full auto spray and hit almost every bullet, the TTK would go up naturally. But I doubt that they're going to go ahead and do that kind of nerf, that site meta change. I personally, my favorite site meta was in season 1 when we had the M4 iron sights and the MP5 iron sights, because this was before, you know, people got really crazy with the Kar 98, which is something that I think needs to get nerfed, which is something I'm going to talk about in a minute. Obviously, if they nerf the higher zoom optics, like the 3 times on the ARs, they're going to have to nerf some snipers as well, which is something that I think needs to happen inside of the game. But like I said, favorite meta was definitely the iron sight, M4, and the MP5, only because I think it did create a bigger skill gap. It's just a lot of people, you know, the meta shifted so fast to the 3 times, people just weren't given an opportunity to get good at the iron sight meta. But I do think that the iron sight meta was probably one of the best, just because you can work at it and get better with it. Whereas the VLK meta that we have now, and the 3 times optic meta, it's not like you got to work to get better at it. It's just like you put it on the gun has no recoil, you hit every shot, so on and so forth. I don't know. I prefer things that are slightly more difficult. I don't like things being like overly challenging to where, you know, it's not fun, it's not enjoyable. But I like it to where, you know, if I put in the time, I want to be, you know, I want to have an edge. You know, I put in the time, put in the hours. And that just goes with, you know, anything in life. It's not just gaming. So wish list number 4 is going to be more flinch on the Kar 98. I know the Kar 98 is my favorite weapon by far, but I do agree it's kind of grossly overpowered. But part of the reason it is the way it is because it's the only sniper that can actually compete with these 3x ARs, full auto spraying, you know, at that sub 200 meter mark. No other sniper is able to do what the Kar 98 does. The Swiss is getting close to being in contention, but I still think that it has a little bit too much flinch, which is why I think if they would shift the meta with the sights back to the iron sight, I think a nerf to the Kar 98 would be completely warranted. I think it'd be absolutely phenomenal. But as it stands right now, the Kar 98 I think is where it needs to be, because if I am getting shot at, I barely have enough time to scope in, line up the shot, and, you know, shoot. And I don't hit it every time, but as an advanced Kar 98 user, I would say it's literally at the brink of almost impossible in some scenarios. So I think if they would switch up the meta to the Iron Sight meta, Kar 98 nerf, and I think the game would be in a lot better place. It wouldn't be as dominated by snipers like people think. The fifth thing on my wish list is something that I really wish that they would implement, and I think Battlefield 5 is going to implement, and I think it's going to throw people for a loop and kind of put a hurt on, you know, Warzone's console player base, and that is going to be a field of view slider for console. I don't know why they don't have this. I am pretty sure that the new consoles can run Warzone at 120 FOV. Even if they can't get it up to 120 FOV, I'm sure people on console would be happy with any kind of FOV slider, even if it stopped at like 105. I believe that's what Apex stops at. I'm not 100% sure, or maybe it's Battlefield 5 stops at 105. I don't know why they don't implement something like that. I know they keep saying it's in the works. I hope that they're not waiting for Battlefield to come out to drop all this new content, you know, with the FOV slider, the zombie camos, this, that, and another. Because at that point, I really do think it might be a little bit too late for Warzone to kind of make a comeback, because it's already on the downhill trend. So hopefully they bring the field of view slider sooner. Also, I think while people think it makes them significantly better and puts them at a disadvantage, you know, I'm going to get 1,000 comments on this. Oh, they can see more of the screen. It puts me at a disadvantage, so on and so forth. Dude, I promise it's really not that much of an advantage. Well, then, John, why do you use it? Why don't you go back to 60 FOV? Well, I have for certain challenges, and it really wasn't bad at all. I still fragged out, still dropped 20s. But I will say this, it does make the game more enjoyable to play because you feel as if you're moving faster. That I really do think is the only advantage, is that you can play for longer and not get as tilted just because it feels like you're moving faster. I really don't, I mean, like, obviously you can see out of your peripherals slightly more. I'll be honest, it's not, I've not had it to where I'm like, if I didn't have field of view, I wouldn't have seen that guy. If you have good in-map awareness, you're going to have it regardless. But I do agree that, you know, playing with the field of view higher, I think it just is more enjoyable to watch. It's just more fluid. You feel like you run faster, and that I think is the main benefit, is you just feel like you're more cracked. I think that kind of gets overlooked. I think that is really the only benefit to the field of view, other than obviously you can see more, but it really doesn't help that much. Number 6 on the wish list. This is probably number 1 for a lot of people, and that is going to be an anti-cheat. The cheaters have been out in full freaking force. I don't know exactly why or what happened, but they are out and they are just gunning everybody. I really wish there was an anti-cheat because, you know, as a streamer personally, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I've played a lot of competitive FPS, or, you know, played at a high level for first-person shooters and battle royales and stuff like that. So I know when people are doing things that are fishy or don't make sense. And as a streamer, you pick up on certain things that not everybody picks up on, right? The parallel I like to draw is, you know, if Michael Jordan is watching me shoot a free throw versus LeBron James shoot a free throw, if you watch it on film, you know, just right next to each other, it's going to look the same. You're not going to notice anything different. You know, we're just shooting a free throw. But if Michael Jordan watches it, he's going to be able to tell, like, oh, LeBron's doing this, John's not doing that, kind of thing. You know, there are little nuances that a lot of people don't pick up on, or everyday gamers don't pick up on. That is something that I wish we had an anti-cheat, because I think there are a lot more cheaters in the game that people realize, using wall hacks and stuff like that. And as a streamer, it's annoying when I call it, when I see it, you know, because I don't call it every death. Like, if I think somebody's cheating, I'll just come out and say it. The main reason I want an anti-cheat is so that way, not even so there's no cheaters, I don't mind. Okay, this is going to sound crazy. I don't mind cheaters that much when they're blatantly aimbotting, blatantly wall hacking, stuff like that. What drives me crazy is when someone gets like some crazy timing, you know, like, or it looks like they're cheating, but they might not be, but they might be, and that you'll never know. That's the main reason I want an anti-cheat, is because I just want peace of mind that when I'm playing against somebody, I'm playing on an even playing field, and I don't have to think, like, could I have done this better? Could I have done that better? Did they just outplay me? You know, should I have done this? Should I have done that? So the main reason I want an anti-cheat is just peace of mind, knowing, you know, okay, that person is not cheating and I just got absolutely smoked and he must have heard me or had the rotation, so on and so forth. I don't know if they can even make an anti-cheat. At this point, we're over a year into the game. I don't think it's even possible. I know a lot of people have some crazy tinfoil hat theories that, you know, oh, Activision is making money off the anti-cheat. I don't subscribe to that theory. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Again, please try to be respectful of each other. Moving on to number 7. This is something that not a lot of people talk about, but whenever I do bring it up, good players and less skillful players, I'll say, or more casual players, usually agree with this, and that's going to be no ground loot self-res. I think that's one of the more infuriating things in, Warzone. The self-res mechanic is a very cool thing. I don't think that you should be able to start a self-res and have your teammate finish it, only because not only do you save the $4,500, but then the time to res is such a variable thing that it's hard to perform specific plays, specific maneuvers, and know, should I push, should I not push? If you knock someone and you're 50 meters out, and their teammate is running over them 20 meters out, there's that 30-meter difference. That is about how much time it would take for somebody to begin a res and finish a res. So you would have enough time you'd be cutting it close. But if they're that 50 meters out, the teammate's 30 meters out, you knock them and you start running, you're in a really bad spot because that player could already be self-resing. Teammate could come over, tap, and then you got two people shooting at you instantaneously when you're like 25 meters out, 30 meters out already. Like, it's crazy. I really wish there wasn't a ground loot self-res. It really throws off the flow of the game a lot. I really wish that they would get rid of it. In place of the self-res, I think it would be pretty cool if they would add a gulag token to the buy station. Maybe for 3,500 bucks, if you already used your gulag, it'd be cool if you could just buy another gulag. I think it would keep the lobbies alive a lot longer. Most people with the self-res situation, everybody's gotten into the habit of insta-thirsting now, which is really annoying. And, obviously it's a part of the game. If somebody downs you, they're going to want to get their kill. It makes sense. I'm not, it is what it is. But I would like to see self-res almost taken out of the game if possible, or at least nerfed to the point where it's not in boxes and teammates can't finish it. But also the addition of a gulag token to the buy station, because I think it'd be pretty cool if you could go to the gulag and fight your way back into the game. I'm not saying automatic redeploy. I think it'd keep the lobbies alive a lot longer, specifically in solos, because you go into the gulag, at least one person's coming out. So if people buy the gulag tokens rather than the self-reses, I think it could make the game just more enjoyable overall. But obviously, there's a lot of other nuances that come with it. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys are thinking about that. Number 8 on my wish list is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and it's just going to be more cash on the ground. They've built a game that is based on an economy system, basically where you have to have money in order to succeed, in order to buy your loadout, buy UAVs, buy plates, buy gas masks, buy teammates back, buy self-reses, buy, anything. You need more cash. So I wish that they'd put some more cash into the game. I don't think a lot of people notice it, but they have decreased cash a decent amount over the past like 6 to 8 months. Pretty much when the game first released, you could get your loadout in the first 15, 40 seconds of a game, give or take a little bit. And now it takes around a minute to like a minute and 15 seconds. Specifically in solos, it's pretty difficult to get your loadout, even though they say that they increase the cash, spawn rate. I wish that they would just make it so that way, if they're going to have an econ system in the game, don't make it incredibly difficult to find cash. It's already based on RNG. Take some of the randomness out of the game. Let players, go ahead and get their loadout fast, because that's what makes the game fun. If you have ground loot weapons, man, you really don't stand a chance against somebody that's, got their fully kitted out, set up already. So I wish that they would increase cash. Number 9 on the wish list is going to be adding a redeploy system. I don't know if you guys have played Battlefield 4. Basically, when you spawn back in Warzone, it just throws you in over top of wherever the gulag was and inside the circle. So there is a tremendous amount of times where I win the gulag and it's like right around first circle, and first circle is about to close, and my teammate bought a loadout, and the loadout is 1,000 meters away because we both died. And then I was in a gulag by farmland or up at Summit or by Millie. And then when I win the gulag, it throws me back in the game, and I'm like 1,000 meters away from my things. So I really wish that there was, kind of like maybe even like a triangle system where you could either spawn at this part of the circle, that part of the circle, or that part of the circle. So you can choose like, okay, I want to be closer to where my loot is, or I want to be closer to where my teammates are, or I want to, be closer to this power position. I think it could be interesting. Obviously, it could be difficult and could pose other problems because it could make rotations a little bit weird. People could, just end up killing themselves, go to the gulag, and then get a free rotation if they know they have a hard rotation. But then again, they could, tweak the system to where you can choose, you could spawn over top of your loadout, or you could spawn somewhere at random in the zone, so that way you're not getting eaten alive by the gas. But that's just something, it's like a little feature that I wish that we had. And number 10, the last thing on the wish list, is I hope that they keep adding things that are kind of take away from the realism. I know a lot of people like this game for the realism, even though the game is not realistic almost at all. Even before they started adding all this stuff, the game's not realistic. It just isn't. And so it's, you know, it's not a military simulation game, which is what a realistic game is. That's Arma, that's PUBG, that's more of those kinds of games. This game is not, it's more of like a battlefield shooter, which those are not realistic either. You know, there's not really bullet drop in this game. You're not going to be shooting a full auto AR with a 3X and not having any kind of recoil. You're not going to go to the gulag and then spawn back in from the sky. You're not going to get bought back at a buy station. Like all that. The game is not realistic where it stands. It just has, you know, realistic gunplay, which people mistake for, you know, realism overall, which is why I think the Nakatomi Plaza having the specialist bonus, I think the satellites that they've added in, I think those are fantastic additions. Things to just essentially speed up the game, because as of right now, the games are a little bit long. They're at like 20 to 25 minutes a game. If you're going to get the win from start to finish, around 20 to 25 minutes, that's pretty long. In Blackout, the longest game I think I had in Blackout was around 20 minutes or 21 minutes, and then the shortest was around 15. So the pacing of the game and the constant action and being engaged, I think is something that could be, you know, worked on. So I don't know if they need to increase the speed of the circles, but I like the fact that they're adding in things that are less realistic and kind of making it more of a game and more of a fun experience. I know a lot of people don't like it because they're saying, oh, it's getting like Fortnite's getting like this, it's getting like that. But in reality, man, that kind of, like the little stuff like that, like the tracer packs, you know, that's not that realistic. You have the Mastercraft camos that react, like all that kind of stuff. That's stuff that brings new life to the game and makes it so playable and adds the playability factor and just makes it more fun. You can play for longer. You know, it adds a little bit of chaos to the mix and just makes it more fun for everybody. I truly do believe, because, you know, whether you're a good player or bad player, if you guys get specialist bonus, you're going to have fun. It's a good time, you know? So it just gives people something to do, more of a sense of direction. That's just kind of my 2 cents about it. So I hope that they keep in that trajectory, in that direction, with changing the game and adding less realistic stuff, I guess, and kind of making it more of a fun game rather than so intense and, you know, kind of scary, to be honest. Anyway, though, guys, I hope that you enjoy. If you guys did, don't forget to drop a like on this video. Make sure to drop in the comment section down below 3 things that you guys would want to see on a Warzone wish list. What's on your Warzone wish list? I'm going to go through and try to reply to as many of the comments as I can. And I want everybody to treat this as a conversation or discussion. Please don't be jumping down people's throats. Don't be going crazy. Don't be, you know, yelling at people. Anyway, drop a like, 3 things in the comment section, your wish list. Subscribe if you guys are brand new around here. We're close to 300,000 subscribers. Without further ado, guys, I'll catch y'all later, man. Peace.